Okay. All right, it looks like we're ready to get started here, so I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the May 13th Recreation Commission meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the lands on which we gather are the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. Online today, we have alternate director Jolly Kerr, and in the room, I won't list everyone, but I would like to acknowledge that we do have Trustee Waite joining us today as well, so welcome. Our first item today, we have a delegation from the Comox Valley exhibition. I'd like to welcome Marion, Lori, and Michelle. You can come on up. Did I get everyone? Am I missing a name? I see 4 of you, but I've got a list of 3. And Lisa, thanks for joining us and welcome. Whoever would like to speak first can come up to the mic and okay, great. And if you just press the button, yeah, I can turn on your microphone.
Awesome, thank you. We would just like to say thank you for letting us to talk today, and that we would also like to acknowledge that we're on the unceded traditional lands of the Pantlich, Ayiksint, Salut, and Sitla people, and thank you for letting us be here. Okay, where to start? We've been around for 151 years. So it's a long time that agriculture has been part of the valley, and we would like to see this tradition continue. With the loss of several of our other events in the valley due to the economic changes, we'd like to see this one continue. Okay. There we go. So right now we're working on getting more sponsors. Everybody that's been a previous exhibitor or sponsor has agreed to work for a reduced price for us this year. So we're saving a lot of money this year by making everybody work much cheaper. We're also going back to basics. More and more people, I think, need to know about farming and agricultural activities and how to be food sustainable. So we're going back to the basics. We're going to be doing a lot more corn mazes, corn husking, pie eating, a whole bunch of things that are, dinosaur races, because of course you have to have dinosaurs in the valley. And we're going to be doing a lot more educational components with 4-H. We'll be having book readings and different events situated throughout the 40 acres so that people will be able to wander from place to place. What else are we going to be doing? Michelle's going to talk about what we've got planned and partnered with the First Nations this year.
Hi. So basically what we've got organized is 5 different groups of First Nations within our community. Each of the First Nations groups would like to contribute a little bit about their culture and teach more to the community, just sort of giving demonstrations. And then they're also interested in having food booths or some sort of vendor booth. So we've kind of worked with them to do exchanges if they're doing a demonstration in, dream catchers or drum making, that they then can have a booth in a different area and they're going to be selling their wares, whether that's ribbon skirts or any of the sort of traditional traditional practices that they have. So we're going to have a cedar greeting arbor provided by the Métis as an entry into the curling rink, which is the static displays. And then they'll also be taking up an area of that curling rink and pass through each of those educational stations, which is each table is related to whichever representative they are. And then the Métis will be at the end of the curling rink, and out that door you will go and you'll be able to go through a teepee, and the trapper's tent is what they're bringing for us too. So those are sort of the areas. The Comox First Nations, we're in conversation with Trevor Hardy for his canoe. We're just trying to figure out how we can fund all of these things because they're going to have to be funded through grants. We don't have the money to provide honorariums or anything like that. So we're definitely very clear with them that that's kind of what we have to look at. So whatever support we can get with that. I have a letter here from the Comox First Nations that, you know, basically makes their commitment to helping us make this come together. So yeah, so we plan to have everything from Bannock to First Nations tacos to ribbon making skirts and button blankets and all of the sort of traditional things that we're familiar with and many of the things that we're not.
We'd also like to let you know that we have a new board this year, that there's lots of energy and there's a lot of really young people on our board this year that are farmers. So it's really, really nice to be getting a new set of ideas, a new fresh outlook on things. And they're super committed. I've never seen that much energy in a room before. These guys are fantastic. So it's going to be super fun to be working with them. Ask. We're here to beg for money because that's sort of why we're here. So Jennifer's aware of where we're at. She's been in to some of our meetings, so she knows where we're at. And Edwin is part of he's a friend of the board and he's been coming to our meetings for long before I joined. I don't know how many years Edwin's been part of it, but it's been a long time. 151. Yeah, you don't look a day over 21. You're good. So yeah, I'm not sure what else you need to know from us other than we would really appreciate it if there's some way you could give us a grant or help us out with our arrears from last year. Okay, and thank you. That's our last slide. Yeah, so we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. If you have any questions, info@cbex.ca, just send us a message and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Yeah. Oh, she says I have to field questions.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you're okay to field some questions. Thanks so much for coming today and providing us with a little update on what's new. I love the addition of bringing in our Indigenous culture into the event. This is obviously from how long this event has been going, a really important local cultural event. So it's really nice to see those two things coming together. And just so you're aware of what the process is, generally with delegations, we don't provide an answer or make a decision on it. We'll mostly have some clarifying questions and then it'll come back at a future meeting.
That sounds wonderful.
And you guys are all right to answer some from the board? Great. First up, we have Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming. I think this is a really good step forward. As I say, 151 years ago when I first attended this fair, it was very much like a country fair. I would say that seriously though, I mean, my family did come very early. It was one of the first settlers. And I think, this is going back to the roots of the fair, all the things that are pertinent to farmers and we tried last year to revitalize the Antique Tractor Club or the Antique Farm Machinery Club, but because it was always a big part with all the old steam tractors and everything. But, these things now are the people that actually own them are getting on. And these pieces of antique machinery are worth quite a lot of money. And most of them left the valley. They've gone to the mainland or whatever. So I think, bringing in First Nations is great because we all celebrate the fact that we work on the land together. We've been on the land together for a long, long time. I would say that the focus on farming this year is going to be basically what is going to bring people to the fair, because we're going back to the basics. We've had daredevil motorcycles and everything else over the years. So this is a bit of a change. I would say that you have to remember that at one time that land, that exhibition grounds, was actually owned by the Farmers Institute, and leased to the exhibition, no fees are charged at all. And in fact, that goes that goes back a long time. So at the very least, I think we can possibly, with the board's permission, can waive some of the fees. I've always been an advocate that things like of this nature, and as well as the farmer's market, it should be a wash insofar as the rental of the grounds go as much as possible, so that they basically get it, you know, for a nominal fee or very little. So as well, I'm going to be one of the musicians that's going to be playing pro bono. So a lot of
You're last up on Sunday, so
That's
tell
it. Come
everybody
on
to
out.
come.
If anybody can empty a park, it's me. I do a good job of that. But seriously, though, I think that I wish you all the greatest luck. I would tell the board here that this is a bridge to the past that we need to hold on to. That a lot of people think they get their food from a styrofoam container at Superstore, and you know, as much as we can engage the farming community to liaise with the urbanites, we love you guys. That the more understanding we can have, and the more success we'll have in the farm, and success we'll have in the exhibition. I would also say that it is how many events were in the red last year? I think well, Bob's not here, but Bob's the Rotarian. I think even Rib Fest didn't do well. So Music Fest is a thing of the past, perhaps, you know. So it's been tough times. So, you know, all we need to do is give you a lifeline and keep you afloat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for those comments. And Director Morin, I believe, is the next.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks so much for the presentation. And I did see in the PowerPoint the list of funders. Those were from last year, I'm assuming, and
this year.
okay.
Yeah, we've already started to get funding in, and we've gotten a grant this year from Mosaic Timber as well.
Right, so you're kind of feeling like this year you're going to probably be able to balance things, but it's kind of taking care of last year's.
Yeah, we've only got one outstanding bill now, so.
Yeah. Well, you're probably doing better than many of us in the room of a few bills, but it's great that you have a new board with lots of energy. I know that volunteers has been also taking a hit in the last while. Have you been able to bolster your volunteer base at all?
I think we're doing really good. We have a new volunteer director this year, and she used to be part of Music Fest, so she's stealing all of their volunteers.
Right.
So I think we're going to be okay for volunteers this year.
Okay, great. And my last comment is just around, it sounds like some amazing events and things happening with all the different Indigenous groups. I'm not sure if they're planning to do any, information presentations around like farming and use of the land going back.
That's where I actually started with them, was what I was
Yeah.
looking for. They're moving around. They're having some conversation around that. Comox First Nations does have a lady who, uses the herbs to make her products. So we're hoping to engage her. Last year she wanted to have a booth, but she was only able to do one day. So she decided her plate was full enough, but yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah,
So
no, that would be
that's-
really
that's
interesting.
kind of
Just
where
looking at all
it started. Yeah.
the medicinal plants and even going back farming. Although all that information would be great. Thank you.
Also, the Farmers Institute is planning on doing a bunch of educational farming workshops as well. So they'll be doing a lot of the ancestral from their farms. So they're going to tie it all together.
Thanks. And Director Brown.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I was listening to a program on the radio today about how whatever this next generation is being called, not millennials, but the next one, don't have any idea how to cook or don't know where their food comes from. And so it would be great to do some cooking demos or how to grow food. I know lots more people are trying to grow food on their little city lots. So that kind of thing would be super helpful. I think it's really great that you guys have gone back to the basics and are showcasing the Valley as an agricultural area, because we are. And we need to continue to be, because we all need to eat. And also highlighting what farmers do, because we don't, I think, appreciate them as much as we could. My question is around the request for debt relief. Is that money that you're owed to us, or is that money that you're owed elsewhere that you want support paying back?
We owe them.
Both.
Oh, okay, okay.
The truth be known, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, some of our services that we were, the dumpsters and things like that, that we owe
okay.
there also. So we've sort of got outstanding as well as you guys.
Okay, thanks.
But it's a really small debt.
It's getting
pretty small.
smaller.
And your comment is, yes, my kids use HelloFresh and all those, yeah. And I taught them how to cook. I think Lisa.
Yeah, one of the things that as a previous 4-H leader, that is really exciting to me is part of our board is now made up of the 4-H kids that were involved when I was a leader. So that was it's pretty exciting. And actually Lisa, who's here, was one of my 4-H kids. And there's a couple more on the board. So that's where some of that new
It's coming
energy is coming from. And they're very familiar with the agriculture in the valley. So it's been some time. Come on up.
I don't think we quite hyped up the youth component enough in our speaking, and like the 4-H are the next generation of farmers around, and they bring an educational component to the fair because the kids get all these displays ready and they show their animals and they talk to the public about how they've raised their projects. And our fairs where the local 4-H clubs show off their projects at the end of the year. It's a really important youth resource that teaches them all about leadership and responsibility and public speaking, which is always hard. But it's really important to the kids that we have the fair to show off all of our projects at the end of the year. So any help that we can get to keep the fair going would be really nice.
Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. I was a 4-H kid. And I was from an island that went to the exhibition in Nanaimo, but yeah, it was like basically all spring was building up to that. And that's a nice reminder. I'd kind of forgotten about that piece. So thanks for that. Just one final question, comment from Director Kerr, and then we'll move on with the meeting.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the opportunity to tell us a little bit about your organization. Looking forward to the X again this year. I guess when I look at this request for debt relief, I was kind of expecting to see maybe the budget for the event, why there was a cost overrun, maybe what you expect this year to be. Are you going to make that money back? What the business plan might be to make $6,100 extra this year to offset last year and then repay your debt. It's a bold ask, which is great. Appreciate you coming here, but I don't see the rationale for it or the budgetary numbers to further understand the request. Is this going to be a one-time deal? Are you going to be back next year asking for 6,000, 10,000, 12,000? Just there's a lot of context that's missing. So perhaps before our committee has a chance to discuss this at a future meeting, maybe add some additional financials and what the plan is for the upcoming years would be helpful in our decision making.
Can I address that?
It's up to the chair.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
The two outstanding bills that we have were actually from 2 years ago that were not submitted. And so now we're stuck with them 2 years later. So otherwise we would have been perfectly fine. It's just two things just popped up in the mailbox that we were not expecting that weren't submitted from the two directors from 2 years ago. So that's why we're in the hole. Otherwise, we're not planning on ever being in the hole again and not asking for you. Okay.
Also, Marion is our treasurer and she's more than comfortable to provide you with our budget if you would like to see that.
That'd be great if I may, Chair. Just, yeah, so whatever context you can give us, understanding. Also, if two directors didn't give you a bill from 2 years ago, that.
They're no longer directors.
Right. Well, that, I mean, and that could also be on them, not
Yeah.
you or the board, right? So
falls on us to
sometimes
pay
people
it.
don't get paid if they don't submit their receipts in time. So anyways, I'd like to have as much info as possible. I also don't want to set a precedent for this committee or the board of doing something similar forward, unless it's really extenuating circumstances. So whatever circumstances you have, please share in detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for those comments. And I didn't see that Director Hardy had his light on, so we'll finish up with Director Hardy.
Thanks, Chair. So again, just trying to understand what the ask is here. So there's an outstanding debt of $6,172.32. If I understand that correctly, so that's what the ask is CVEX asking the CVRD to waive that fee. And then is there any additional requests with regards to funds for your project this year, or is that just the real request there? I think there was something in there with regards to you're hosting some Indigenous events and there's a cost of honorariums and stuff like that. So are you asking for the CVRD to help out with some of those costs, or again, just trying to get clarification on what your ask was?
That wasn't the intention for the
Okay.
CVRD. Yeah, that it was more looking towards any Indigenous grants that are available out there, and having those Indigenous communities give us a hand trying to figure out how to access them.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks. So that helps with that question. And then is there an expectation with regards to the CVRD invoice and CVEX for the event again this year? Like what, I'm just trying to understand, and I think that's where Director Jonathan's request with regards to your business plan and stuff, where what is it that we can help out with? Because again, going back to Director Grieve and his comments with regards to, maybe there should be a CVRD waiving the fees if the CVRD is invoicing CVEX for the event. So is there anybody that can help me out with that question, or is that to be answered later,
Do you
maybe?
want to speak about that? One of the things that was noted was that we also pay for the curling rink, the rental of the curling rink.
Okay.
So that was sort of an additional cost as well.
Yeah.
But Marion, you have more information.
Yeah, so basically what we're looking for is a waiver of the $6,100 that we owe for last year. And if there is a possibility, instead of funding for us this year, is if there would be an in-kind to waive all the fees, as Director Greaves had said, to make it a wash. So that way for this year only is what we're asking for, to have all our bills waived for this year.
So if I can, Chair, so I guess I'm just trying to understand what those costs are from the CVRD. Like, is there an annual fee that the CVRD invoices CVEX for the event every year? And if so,
yes.
maybe we can get something
we-
from staff later on with regards to clarification on what that fee is on an annual basis.
Jennifer, is our fee $60 to $100 annually? And then we also get, I don't think you have any influence on the rack or the rink. So, because we also pay rent there for them. Oh,
Sorry, I forgot I had to turn you on. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So traditionally, your fees are roughly $7,200, and the CVRD staff relieved, I believe it was about $1,600 of the costs for this last year. So you had that reduction, but it's going to be normally between $7,200 to $7,500, depending on where fees and charges, increases each year go. And those fees and charges, the rentals are for the land, any barn use, stall use, camping, those kinds of things. The curling rink is under a lease from the CVRD, so that's not invoiced by the CVRD, but that's invoiced by the Comox Valley Curling Club. And then water is included in there, and electrical as well.
Thanks for that clarity. And perhaps when we receive your request back for a decision, the staff can provide that clarity around what the expected costs are and any other funding that's received from the CVRD. So it's fine if you don't have numbers off the top of your head, because that's one of the reasons why we don't make the decision on the night of the delegation. So yeah, thanks for providing that. And it looks like
One last question, but good, Chair. I know I'm asking a lot of questions, and I guess I'm again just trying to figure out where we are with regards to the agriculture service. and whether or not down the road, the agriculture service would be able to somehow help out CVEX with this annual project that goes on every year.
So the CVRD undertook an agricultural planning study. And that was reported out to both the board and to the Electoral Area Services Committee earlier this year. The Electoral Area Services Committee has committed to progress an agricultural coordinator and focus on those rural activities within the agricultural plan. I think as we see today, there is the obvious connection to the exhibition grounds. There is grant funding that has been provided. I would echo what the chair was saying in that we can work with CVEX and come back with a report that really articulates the asks, whether there's a fee waiver and other components there, just so it's all on paper and you can then see what it is. It's hard to keep all the numbers straight in the head as we go. So I was going to suggest that if the commission wants, you can consider a resolution to direct this to staff to come back with a report that would speak to the request from CVEX, and we can get all that information in a report for you to consider at a future meeting.
That sounds like a great suggestion. And with that, I'll pass it to Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I'll move that we request a staff report on the funding request from CVEX.
Any discussion on that? Seeing no lights on, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. Thank you very much for joining us today, Lori, Michelle, Marion, and Lisa. Have a great afternoon, and you will receive a formal response from us at a future date.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is the resolution status report for receipt. Moved by Hillian, seconded by Morin. Any questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, all those in favor of receipt? Anyone opposed? It passes. Moving right along to reports, 2025 recreation grant requests. Moved by Grant, seconded by Morin, and I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. Trish Morgan, our Assistant Senior Manager of Recreation Services, will be introducing this report, and we're available to support any discussion. Trish, over to you.
Thank you. I'll just wait till it comes up. Oh, we could, yeah, just put up the spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm going to present the 2025 recreation grant requests. So Service 600 recreation grants provides financial support to help offset the cost of recreation programs delivered by public authorities and nonprofits. It also includes a contribution towards the operation of the Courtney Outdoor Pool. In addition, several other agencies receive annual support as part of the budget planning process. However, a dedicated allocation of $30,000 is included in the budget to support special events and games and is available through an application-based process. So for this year, we've got 4 applications. We've got Blazing Paddles requesting $1,500 to help pay for the cost of their insurance. Hornby Island Athletic Association is requesting $21,380 to complete their outdoor court renovation. Steam Donkey Racing Club is requesting $5,000 for reusable collapsible cups and tumblers for their race. And the BC Summer Swimming Association is requesting $3,500 to assist with hosting the Vancouver Island Regional Championships that will be held at the Comox Valley Aquatic Center in August of 2025. So the total request is $31,380, and there is $30,000 in the fund. And so now we're passing it back to the Recreation Commission to determine how that may be allocated.
Thanks for that report. Just looking around the room to see if there's any questions on the report as it's been presented. Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just curious about the Steam Donkey Racing Club, $5,000 for reusable collapsible cups. Can you explain what exactly that involves?
From my, sure, through the chair. From my understanding is a lot of these races, they just have throwaway cups. So these ones will be reusable and they'll use them year after year, or the participants will take them away. So.
Thanks for that. And Director Grant.
I'm just wondering, we have $30,000 and we are being asked for 31.3. So it would be nice to be able to stick to the $30,000 because that's what we put out there. And I'm wondering if we took the 21,380 from Hornby Island and gave them 20,000 instead, that would balance the books and it gets them 99.9% of the way to where they want to be. So I'm just wondering if that would be something we should look at.
Yes, thanks for that suggestion. We will have to make some type of decision on how this is allocated as, yeah, our remaining amount is below what's being requested. So thanks for putting that forward. And I turned your light off by accident to Director Brown, so it's your turn.
Thanks. I was going to say the same thing. So happy to move in that direction. I just want to confirm, have we given Steam Donkey or BC Summer Swimming Association funds in the past? I know not last year, but ever? Anybody remember?
Yeah, not the recent past
Okay.
that we can determine.
Thanks for that question. And Director Morin.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable suggestion that Director Grant had. Excuse me. It's not a huge amount of money to find from somewhere, that remaining. I know that we do have criteria for these grants, but I don't think we have that in the report. So I'm just making the assumption that all of these, I think last year there was one that we were kind of questioning, but I'm assuming all of these projects fit the criteria that we have. I know many of them mention inclusivity, et cetera. That is a question.
My apologies. Sorry, I was checking something. Can you please repeat the question?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm just, I'm assuming that we do have criteria for the requests to fit that criteria, but we don't have that in the report. So I'm just making an assumption that staff has already vetted and whatever criteria we have, all of these projects meet. Is that correct?
Yes, my apologies. It's the first time I've gone through the recreation grants here. And yes, we had some help with it and it has been reviewed by a number of folks.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for that. And Director Brown.
Yeah, similar thinking here. I'm just wondering if when these, I think we talked about this last time, and so apologies if this is repetitive or if we already made a decision around it. If we got the actual applications along with the grant, it would give us more background. I feel like we might be increasingly getting more applications than we have money to give, and it would just help in our decision making to have a more fulsome picture of the organization and the event. And also something I've seen before in grant applications is a sort of minimum amount to go forward. So if we do have to adjust, we know that there's a minimum amount, or it just would help us if we need to start moving money between organizations to stay under 30.
Yeah, thanks for that suggestion. And yeah, in this case, I guess we don't need to worry about it as much, but yeah, going forward and thinking about how this may land in future. And also just a reminder that these are applications that came in after we determined funding. So we do have a point in time at which we are allocating money to the larger pool of applicants. So these are, in a sense, one-offs to a degree. But now there's another light. Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just curious, I know we just had a delegation come in requesting for cost of $6,172 to be waived. I'm just wondering if this grant application, I mean, if we're looking at Hornby Island Athletic Association asking for nearly 2/3 of the grant dollars, that maybe CVEX might be able to access some of that 21,000 that's being requested from Hornby, like just kind of splitting up the pie a little bit more. Just wonder if that's an option or not. Thanks.
I'll look to staff on that.
Yeah, it certainly is an option. The commission doesn't have to award any funds at all in this instance. You're right, you just heard a delegation from another potential recipient. I don't believe that if all of these funds are expended today, that would close the door entirely on the CVEX request. And we would certainly come back to articulate what that request is and where those potential sources of funding would be. So you can choose to award some or all of that $30,000 as you see fit. And we made a note, yes, to include the full applications for subsequent years. That's something that would be available.
Thanks for that, James. And we'll go online to alternate director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And just a note, I did last year ask for the full applications for this year. So I think it's a few years now that we've requested it. So it would be helpful next year if we can really just ensure we have those. And my question is to staff from the previous presenters of the delegation. In their delegation request, did staff highlight to them the recreation grant application process and the opportunity to submit an application?
For the chair, perhaps Doug can answer, or Jennifer.
In just a moment, we'll get Doug DiMarzo.
Well, actually, I think Jennifer has been.
Okay, Jennifer's going to answer for you. Sorry, looking around the room here. Thanks, Jennifer.
Through the chair, I believe the question was if staff had provided the information on this recreation grant process to the CVEX. And yes, staff have met with CVEX and I've let them know of the various possible applications out there, possible processes, and this was one of them.
Okay, so if I can, Chair, just as a follow-up. So seeing that they're not listed in the list in front of us on the screen today, it's safe to assume that they did not proceed with an application for the Rec Grant 2025?
Through the chair, that would be correct. I think they have a very new board and trying to learn the processes and which grants and when to apply. I think it's a bit of a learning curve for them at this time. And I think our general manager, Doug DiMarzo, has further.
Just a point of clarification here to help guide the conversation is CVEX was awarded 10,000 from the rec grant from your 25 deliberations earlier this year during the budget process. So anything in addition to that, there would be an additional grant request after this delegation, in addition to the 10,000 they have received on for a number of years now from rec grant.
Thanks for that. It's important context. So I'm seeing no other lights on. And just to circle back on a point you provided earlier, James, we do have the ability to address this in some way. Like we're not hindering ourselves from being able to make a decision on the delegation by deciding on these grants today, or would it be a better process to delay and look at all of them together?
I don't believe you're closing the door entirely on the CVEX request, and we could come back to describe what that would be. I know in some other instances, we've been able to borrow funds from a different service as long as that service gets repaid in the subsequent year. So that is an opportunity. That said, if you want to see the full picture, I don't know that there is any extreme urgency on the award of these grants. We can certainly come back at a subsequent meeting if you want to defer with the full picture from CVEX as well. But maybe I should ask Trish if there's any extreme urgency in terms of these grant requests, these 4 that are in front of us.
Through the chair, I don't think so. My understanding is that they did apply maybe a little bit late and they waited this long, so it could wait a little bit longer, likely. I do know Hornby Island Athletic Association is trying to get their project all done by the August of 2025. They have an event, but however long it takes the commission to determine the allocations is fine.
So it could be deferred. That would be a choice for the commission today.
It is an option. Okay, thanks for providing that context. I'll dispense with receipt. I don't see any other lights on. Anyone opposed to receipt? Oh. Let's dispense with receipt and then, yeah, we'll still be on this topic. So anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, I guess we don't have anything on the floor. Maybe that's why I shouldn't have, but anyway, over to you.
I'm just looking at these and wondering, like, if CVEX were to be added to this list, it would change my opinion on where we give these grants to. So I think we need to know what we're doing with that before we can proceed with this. Like, I look at Steam Donkey Racing and they're buying cups, reusable cups. Well, I know if you give me a reusable cup, it'll be gone in about a week and I'll be looking for another one. So, I mean, I can see reasons why we might not want to do that. I look at Hornby Island Athletic Association and they've been working on a project for a long time and it seems like they're almost there. So I have some legitimacy to that, but if you add another 6,100, it's going to change what I would think. So, so my question would be, if Hornby Island needs the money sooner rather than later, we could pass something on we don't have to pass the whole thing right now. We could pass that if we chose to. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So having said that, I would say that we should, I would make a motion that we give Hornby Island Athletic Association $20,000.
Yes, absolutely. I will go to Director Brown.
So do we have that motion on the floor now?
Yes.
So I need to speak to that motion.
Yes.
So I'd rather not go in that direction. I think we should be looking at the grants that are in front of us that were submitted in a timely manner according to the way we do grants. And we've just had a delegation from an organization that I'm fully willing to support. And I think they're doing great work. We already gave them $10,000, we just heard, and we've already directed staff to bring back a report to help us make a decision on whether or not we give them 6,200 more. So I think the grants that are in front of us are the topic for today. And we have a great suggestion from Director Grant to give to reduce the Hornby grant request and stick to the 30,000, and I would like to move that forward instead.
I have a question on process for staff. If the board wishes to add on, is that contrary to the motion, or is that considered an amendment? If okay, so that's one possible way to proceed, is to put an amendment on to add on to what Director Grant has put forward in his motion. Go ahead, Director Grant.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I was just trying to look for a way to get Hornby Island moving a little bit quicker rather than the rest, and by delaying them. To me, you're absolutely on the right track, but I'm also trying to feel out what the board is thinking as to whether we want to add to this or what we want to do. So I'm totally happy with your motion if that's the way we decide to go.
And Director Morin is next.
Thanks. So it sounds like that was that an amendment then?
There's no amendment made yet, but
okay.
Director Grant is.
So it sounds like we're moving in the direction of the list minus 1380 to Hornby. Okay. I guess my question is regarding, and I agree with Director Brown that I think, we've got a staff report coming. To me, we don't kind of throw that into this conversation at this point. And I guess my question is if this would take up that 30,000, and I guess I'm contradicting myself because I'm going to speak to the issue that the report's for, but do we have another funding source for that, that request that we may consider in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm in favor of the motion then, thanks.
The motion as it's not amended currently. Yes, well, currently we only have one motion on the table, so if you could, yeah, at this point, Director Grant, you could withdraw it and we could put a new motion on the floor, or someone could amend the motion to include the rest of the grants in the list.
Okay, I'll withdraw my.
Okay. Is the seconder in, I think that's how that goes. Yeah, okay, so we have no motion on the floor. And we have Director Kerr, first in line.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recreation grants for Blazing Paddles, Hornby Island Athletic Association, and BC Summer Swimming Association. And if I'm seconded, I'll speak to the reason why those three, not the fourth.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so again, I don't have any affiliation with any of these organizations. As I look at them, you know, providing insurance for Blazing Paddles to perform their program makes good sense to me. We've already spoken about Hornby Island. I support the work that they're doing, and that's a major project, and it's going to do a lot of good for recreation on that island. And BC Swimming Association, that's got a bit of a regional approach and some tourism and economic benefit as well. So I see that hosting that island regional championships here locally this year makes good sense. Not support of any organization that would come and ask for $5,000 for mugs or cups. If I run an event every year for a different club, and that's something really easy to get advertising dollars for. You put your logo on it, you get a whole bunch of mugs made up, and a sponsor provides those. So it just, in a fiscally responsible way, I can't support $5,000 for steel tumblers to go to 175 participants. That would benefit that organization and not the rest of the CVRD residents.
Thanks for those comments and getting a motion on the floor. I see no other lights on, so
Just
Go
for
ahead,
clarity,
Director
Madam
Gray.
Chair, thank you. So is the motion then to give Hornby Island Athletics the extra $1,380? Thank you.
Yeah, so for clarity for everyone, it's the list of what is provided on the screen without what's listed on line 5, the Steam Donkey Racing Club. And that's clear enough for our processes. Director Grant.
So I just want to be 100% clear what we're actually voting on. You just explained it, but so we're voting on everything but Steam Donkey. Is that what we're doing?
That's correct.
Fair enough. And that's the motion on the table?
That is the
Okay,
motion
fair
on the
enough.
table.
Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no other lights on, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? And that passes unanimously, I believe. Okay, moving on to Arena 3 business case update. I'll pass that over to, oh yeah, right. Thank you. Moved by Greaves, seconded by Grant.
Thank you, Chair. And Trish Morgan again will be introducing this report, supported by staff, and I believe there's a presentation that will go along with this. So Trish, over to you.
Thank you. So before I introduce our consultant, who will be providing an update on the Arena 3 business case, I'd like to provide a quick recap of our journey so far. In 2022, the CVRD undertook a 2-phase engagement process with the public and current user groups to examine adult ice use and allocation. The results of the survey led to some changes and additions to public programs, including expanding the Comox Valley Hockey League. Although the intent of the engagement was to examine ice allocation in the Comox Valley, it became apparent that future examination of additional ice surfaces was needed to accommodate the growth and demand for ice use. In March of 2023, the Rec Commission approved the Recreation Strategic Plan and identified the investigation of a new full-size arena to be located on the Sports Center Vanier campus, including the addition of 1,500 to 2,000 seats, either as an expansion to Arena 1 or attached to a new arena, and the addition of 6 to 8 dressing rooms. Last summer, the architectural feasibility study was presented to the Commission, and 4 arena concepts were presented for consideration. These ranged in costs from approximately $37.6 million to $101 million for a spectator arena, and were all located on the Sports Center Vanier campus. Given the significant cost, the next step in the process, which we started in February, is to examine the business case for the 2 options, being a spectator arena and a community rink. The business case includes stakeholder consultation, evaluation of social and community benefits, market demand and economic impact analysis, financial feasibility, a risk assessment, strategic alignment with CVRD plans and drivers, and a decision-making tool to assist with summarizing and examining the options. Today, the Commission will be provided with the interim update on the project, and a final presentation and report will be delivered in July. It's also important to note that because the Sports Center and this addition is on school district land, that following the business case, then we will need to have further discussions with the school district to see if it meets their future long-range plans as well, because they are going through their own capital planning process. To that end, I would like to introduce Steve Slavuta from RC Strategies. Steve is a partner with RC Strategies and has worked with the CVRD in the past. Most notably, you might remember him from the work that they did on the sports field strategy in 2022.
Great. Thanks, Trish, and good afternoon, everyone. Just checking that the volume's okay. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. If we just go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so really, as Trish set up really well for us here, the presentation here really has kind of 3 buckets of content. The first just being an update on where we're at with the process, and kind of a refresher on kind of the scope of the project. Secondly, a little bit more on kind of current status, and then we'll share thirdly some preliminary findings to date. So in terms of the purpose, and again, not to be overly repetitive of what staff presented in the introduction here, but really essentially the business case is looking at 3 kind of key things. So first being to look at kind of a cost-benefit analysis of the spectator arena, that 2,000 or so seat venue versus a community rink, a much smaller capacity venue. Looking at the social, economic, and operating impacts of both arena typology, so essentially a comparison of how those 2 arena options would achieve social and economic benefits and kind of the operating costs associated with each. And then ultimately, the business case will provide decision makers, including many of you, with sort of that objective point of reference that you can use to inform future actions and decision making and potentially resource allocation on the project. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this table here really just summarizes the kind of the scope and where we're at with everything. And I won't go through every line individually here, but essentially kind of in a nutshell here, a number of things are in progress. So the engagement that we're doing with the various stakeholders and those conversations, the cost benefit analysis and research, and then that will all lead itself later into the early summer, late spring, into some of the more those will be inputs into the feasibility analysis, looking at the cost impacts and the risks, strategic alignment, and then that'll be fed into a decision-making tool that will inform sort of a recommended approach through the business case for your consideration that we'll come back to you in July, as mentioned. So quite a bit of work yet to be done, but we've made really good progress on a number of these items. Next slide, please. So just wanted to spend a few minutes and share some of our preliminary findings to date. And again, I will caveat that these are preliminary. We're still in the midst of both doing some of the stakeholder engagement and the research. But in terms of the discussions or the interviews we've had so far, we've talked to 15 organizations through a series of interviews, and we have about 5 or 6 groups more that we have to talk to yet. Those interviews are aimed at gathering a number of different insights. We want to kind of better kind of understand some of or through lines of inquiry, look at kind of the venue needs and benefits, potentially how those groups would see themselves or other like-minded groups using the facility, looking at the potential for arena sports as well as other types of events that could occur in a spectator capacity arena. And then also just kind of looping back on some of the opportunities to address some of the arena gaps that exist locally within the region. So we've engaged a number of different types of groups through those discussions to date. The existing arena user groups, we've talked to those that work sort of in and around the tourism sector, local municipalities, as well as some people that we'd consider kind of subject matter experts in terms of operating venues and so forth, leagues and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So just to share a few key themes from those interviews so far, and again, to reiterate, these are preliminary and we still have a number of discussions to work our way through, but just some things that we've heard from particularly the arena user groups. They really see a lot of benefits to having a third sheet of ice co-located at the sports center. They see that as being a way that their organizations and their sports can attract more kind of regionally and provincially significant tournaments and related types of events. So they're kind of reiterated their excitement around that. For a lot of those groups, kind of an interesting thing or theme that we've heard is that for them, really the quality of seating is more important than the quantity of seating. So they're looking for some degree of seating, but it's more about it having good sight lines and some have pondered whether more of a kind of a mid-range configuration of that 800 to 1200 or somewhere in there is a more kind of appropriate or needed number of seats for a lot of the kind of the scale of events and tournaments competitions that they are hosting. The third point there, certainly a lot of the groups are really keen to continue the discussion around some of the design characteristics. They brought up through these discussions, even though we've mentioned to them that that's probably more of a further detailed design conversation, they are still keen to talk about gender neutral change rooms and more change rooms and better lobby spaces and dryland training areas and all that sort of thing. So just wanted to respect that they are really concerned about that and have brought that up to us through a number of the conversations. The fourth point there, we've heard quite a bit just generally about the lack of arena capacity on Vancouver Island. And then that just kind of creates sort of a trickle-down system, lack of capacity within the system for ice, as well as dry floor use, but mostly ice. And that's something that's really stressing a lot of groups that are certainly growing. And then the last point that we've heard quite consistently from arena user groups is just the kind of the appeal of the region for tournaments due to location, kind of ease of getting to the Comox Valley with the various means of transportation. People, obviously appealing area, lots to do when you come for a minor hockey tournament and there's other things that others in the family can do and so forth. And again, just reiterating that a third arena would certainly drive a lot more kind of tournament potential. And obviously there's some economic potential associated with that as well. Next slide, please. So in addition to the user groups, we've talked to a whole handful of other kind of interested parties and organizations, again, tourism operators, arena operator venues across the province and so on. A few municipalities and a few other things that we just wanted to mention as themes is there's a number of different perspectives on kind of that quote unquote build it and they will come notion in terms of attracting primary tenants, say, a higher level of junior hockey or events. Some certainly believe that is the case. Others have expressed to us that that certainly is a significant risk that needs to be highly considered. Kind of the notion of driving more traffic to the regions during shoulder seasons, that's certainly a priority for a lot of tourism operators, finding ways that can kind of generate sort of off-season events. And then the third point there, we've kind of tried to gauge through some of the conversations kind of the opportunity around a 2,000 seat venue in terms of concert and family shows and non-ice related events, and heard a number of different perspectives. So that's obviously something we have to flesh out more through the subsequent research and engagement and analysis that our team's doing. But there certainly are some perspectives or some kind of notions that a 2,000 seat venue might be challenged to consistently draw some of those concerts and family shows. And some of the kind of commentary around that is that, arena sports tend to be more suitable for a 2,000 seat venue, whereas concerts are kind of economically challenging until you get into a higher level of capacity, more in that 5,000 to 6,000 seat range. And that often kind of the 2,000 seat arena competes with soft seat venues like theaters for a lot of those concerts that are of a smaller capacity. So again, a bit more of an area of exploration for us, but something that we have heard and did want to flag through this kind of presentation of preliminary findings. And then the last point there, certainly, while many folks indicated that through these conversations they would love to see a larger capacity venue, we have heard that the difference in cost is obviously quite significant between that larger capacity venue and a smaller one, and some have pondered what other benefits could be accrued by using those resources on other types of sport, recreation, arts, culture, and community projects. Next slide, please. So in addition to the engagement, a number of other different forms of research that our team's undertaking, looking at current utilization of the arenas in terms of what insights that could tell us about generally different types of arena demand, looking at kind of the region and kind of the market area, and trying to analyze the economic and social benefits that could be accrued through arena development, looking at using different tools to assess economic and social benefits, and then kind of a precedent review of similar sized spectator arenas. So again, most of this is in progress, but there are a few key findings that we wanted to share here this afternoon. So utilization. So our team's undertaken a fairly deep dive into some of the utilization data, and that's reflected a couple things for us. The first being that Arena 1 is used considerably more than Arena 2. So in terms of looking at prime time, and we used a fairly liberal definition of prime time for this kind of high-level analysis. We used 4 to 11:30 p.m. on weekdays, and then all weekend hours. And that really reflects that there is a relationship between spectator capacity and usage. So Arena 1 is booked about 96% of prime time compared to 75% of prime time in Arena 2. But again, we use kind of a fairly wide window for prime time. And if we kind of called that down to be more around, say, 6 to 9 p.m., essentially both arenas are at capacity. And if we look at projected future growth, both of those arenas would be well exceeding 90% within the next 10 years if demand for ice increases with population growth. And then the last point there, when we kind of look at ice supply in the Mid-Island region, quite limited, and based on data from other providers and jurisdictions and other studies that we're able to look at, there is kind of an overall ice shortage on Vancouver Island, and particularly kind of mid or north Mid-Island. So that would certainly support that regardless of the arena option, having a third sheet of ice would likely be fairly well consumed by both local and regional use. Next slide, please. So when we look at kind of across the region, so what is there for ice? So in total, if we including the sports center, the two arenas there, Arena 1 and Arena 2. And if we look between sort of North Cowichan and Campbell River and east out to Port Alberni, 14 total sheets of ice. But if we actually call that down and look more into kind of what spectator arenas exist, there's only one arena with more than 2,000 seats. So kind of similar to the capacity that the business case is looking at, and that's the Frank Crane Arena in Nanaimo. Some minimal concert use, but primarily used for arena purposes. There are two arenas between kind of 1,000 and 2,000 seats. And the Strathcona Gardens expansion is also slated to include a 1,500 seat arena. Obviously, it's within kind of the general broader region. So that's something that could be a competitive venue for, the different types of tenants or events that could occur. And if we look kind of broadly across 2,000 seat arenas in British Columbia and Alberta, again, that really supports that arena sports are the primary driver of use, and that kind of other event type of use is fairly minimal in terms of a proportion of the overall mix. Excuse me. So some of the preliminary financial analysis that was looked at or is in the process of being looked at here. And again, this is probably not new information. I know this came back to you as part of the feasibility study, but quite a significant cost between the spectator and the user arena that were identified as the two preferred options through the feasibility study. So quite a wide gap there. In terms of operational cost, and the business case, we'll get into obviously a lot more detail on this. The spectator arena certainly has a relatively higher operational cost, just given the amount of space to apply utilities to and staffing and things like that. Whereas the user arena would be fairly similar to the current cost to run both Arena 1 and Arena 2. If we look at economic impact, obviously a higher economic impact associated with the spectator arena due to the event traffic that would be driven by that type of venue, whereas arena kind of option 4, the user arena, the second option, has kind of a lower economic impact. There would be some as a result of incremental tournaments by having 3 arenas on the same site, but not as much as the spectator arena. And then when we look at social impact, if we try to quantify that, that spectator arena would provide a higher degree of social impact compared to that more spectator scaled venue. And we'll have a little bit more on that on the subsequent slide here. So if we just go to the next slide. So just to explain this slide a little bit, so it's kind of a star rating scale. So 5 stars is kind of the full degree to which the different arena options would hit on those social indicators. So if we just kind of go very quickly, sort of line by line here, the first row is incremental increase to overall participation in physical activity. So what's kind of the wellness benefit of the facility? And actually, the user arena provides a little bit higher degree of wellness benefit because it does provide more ice to the user system. So user groups would have access to more ice through that option, whereas the spectator arena would have more kind of limited levels of community ice because of the event-based use that would occur in there. But then if we look through the other types of social indicators, that spectator arena provides a little bit higher degree than the user arena, the smaller capacity arena. So in terms of generating kind of volunteer activity, obviously events are a primary driver of that. So the spectator arena would accomplish that or accrue some additional volunteer opportunities. When we look at the opportunity to kind of enhance social connection in the kind of the broader region, events are another mechanism to do that. So the spectator arena would help achieve some of those social impacts or social benefits as well. And kind of similarly, when we look at community pride and identity, some of the activities that would occur in that spectator arena, whether it's hockey games, concerts, family shows, festivals, and so on, would accrue more of that impact or benefit than the community user arena. So we will kind of have more kind of evidence on this in the business case, but we just wanted to present it at kind of a high level, sort of a topical level for now, just as a point of reference. Next slide, please. So in summary here, so if we kind of pull that all together, kind of our preliminary key findings, and again, a number of these things do require more analysis as we go along here. But certainly the kind of the evidence and the research to date supports that a third sheet of ice in general, regardless of what the scale or capacity is, will provide fairly significant social, sport, and economic benefits. Second point there, number of different opinions and perspectives exist on the kind of viability of that spectator arena for non-arena sporting events. So that's what we've kind of flushed out so far through a number of the conversations we have, and a bit more work to be done on that. We look at other kind of comparator 2,000 seat arenas. Kind of the consensus there is fairly inconsistent or limited use beyond arena sports. Generally, that 2,000 seat arena, arena sports are the primary use, and they aren't necessarily kind of high value concert or family show, community event type venues. Certainly exceptions to that, but kind of the majority tend to be more around arena sports as a primary use. The fourth point there, when we look at the current sports center arenas, certainly the utilization suggests that spectator capacity is a fairly significant driver of ice use during the primary peak ice season. And then the fifth point there, kind of that social impact analysis of the spectator, that 2,000 seat arena, reflects that it is slightly higher than the community arena, but the cost benefit analysis through the subsequent work in the business case will further validate that. Okay, so that brings us to what are our next steps here? Well, obviously we have a bunch of work to do over the next couple of months on some of the analysis and research pieces that we shared with you here today. Initiating and completing the financial impacts analysis, so the operating budgets or projections for both venues, the life cycle costs and return on investment analysis. Inputting all that into a decision-making tool, and then ultimately bringing that to into a business case to present to you here in July. I think
Great.
that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that presentation, Steve. We are on a limited timeline, but we do have time for a couple of questions. So are you open to a few questions on process and next steps?
Yeah, for sure. And apologies for going a little bit long there. Wasn't sure kind of what my time allowance was.
It was also, we went a bit long before you started, so we're all responsible here. I have, it's Director Grant is first in line here.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great report. I think I was probably the guy that was pushing the 2,000 seats, and I was actually judging that on, when you look at Port Alberni and, they've got a one-tier higher hockey club than we do, and they fill that place quite often. But I was guessing at the 2,000, so it's probably closer to 1,500 or something like that. So my question is, because I understand the cost difference too, but if we were to build something that was, say, 800 seats, could we build it in such a way that we could add another 800 seats in the future? The way we've got it now, you can't do that. So, I just want to make sure that we don't cut off our arm while we're doing this and be able to add to this when and if the time comes.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks for the question. Probably a bit more of an architectural or design question. I mean, anything's possible. There's obviously costs associated with having portable seats or temporary seats and as well as kind of function questions around a venue. The BCHL, who we are scheduled to talk to, does have league minimums for seating capacity. In terms of whether that's fixed or temporary seats, that's something we can certainly explore. But in terms of whether that's possible, I'm sure it would be, anything's possible, but it's more of a design question.
Thanks for that. And Director Arbor's next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, it's good work that's being done, but at the same time, I feel like we're in 1974 and designing a large facility for, at a time where the cost of construction has never been this high. I'm seeing these figures of 40 million for the smaller size non-spectator and 100 million for spectator. And I'm just like, I don't know how we can spend that kind of money when we know the sort of pressure that we're under in our community around taxes. So I would like to see the board suspend this particular effort. But barring that, there's some other pathways. Mark Carney was just talking this week about how they want to invest heavily and increase in the military space. And I don't think that we've even explored partnership opportunities for an arena expansion at the base. There might actually be positioning that could be done for something like that. So I'm really worried about continuing to walk down a path that is going to be very expensive when we have so many other projects that have cost overruns and are putting pressure on us. So thanks, Chair.
Thanks for sharing those comments. And it's Director Grievous next. Oh, I need to turn you on. Apologies.
I'm speechless. Well, thank you for that report. It's nice to dream big. My question is around the life of the building, because we're not building this for people who are living in the Comox Valley today. This is for the future. And depending on whose experts you believe, we're probably expecting somewhere between 20 and 25,000 people here over the next 15 years, if the trend continues. So I'm just wondering, what is the life expectancy of a building like this?
Through the chair, I'm not the architect, so I'm probably not qualified to answer that question.
I'm just wondering if we are that forward looking. We're just dealing with the local groups right now and very narrow focus. I mean, this is a Hail Mary kind of a situation, right? We're looking far into the future. And another question too, I mean, I think Director Arbor touched on sponsorship and partners. So, I mean, how many arenas out there have actual corporate sponsors?
Yeah, through the chair. So a couple things I can comment on there for sure is, the business case will certainly look at the growth and project out what that might mean in terms of kind of user group demand for ICE, as well as potentially what that could mean for spectators. In terms of kind of the sort of future of the Comox Valley, yeah, I mean, I guess the more kind of social benefit aspects of things that we're exploring too is attracting and retaining residents in terms of things to do and events to go to. So, those are certainly kind of things that the business case will speak to.
Thanks for that. And Director Jolicoeur, you get the last question.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Steve, for the presentation. I'm just curious, in our initial discussions, we had spoken about sponsorship opportunities and opportunities to partner with the private sector, in addition to one of the interest holders being, as has been previously mentioned, higher tier hockey. And so just wondering, in those 15 interviews, if either of those two groups, and if not, is that part of the outstanding work, both in terms of potential sponsorships and then also higher level hockey play?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, and I think you touched on the last part of the previous member's question I forgot to answer. Yeah, so in terms of sponsorship potential, really that's kind of a product of the ability to drive traffic to the facility, and often requires kind of a significant major tenant, which then touches on the other part of your question, that we are talking to the BC Junior Hockey League as part of the discussion here, as well as other junior hockey interests, I suppose you could say. So we are going to try to flush that out in terms of what the potential might be and what their level of interest might be. So we don't really have anything to report on that yet, but that is kind of part of the scope of what we are looking at.
Thanks for that. Director Morin, we're pretty much out of time, but if you want to ask a quick question, we have about 1 minute. We do need to deal with the next item on the agenda, so go ahead.
Thanks. You did mention Strathcona Gardens, and I've been following that a little bit. And I know that their project is mostly the pool and then the expansion and the rink, but I just want to note that, I guess, just related to Director Arbour's comment, that it's before they even finished writing the report, practically the cost went up 15.7 million, I believe. And that facility is only a half an hour away. So I guess we can explore this further, but just putting that query out there, that do we need a huge expansion when we have another rink? And apparently the taxes are going up astronomically for folks in that region. So just putting that out there. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, and if I could very, very quickly touch on that through the chair. Yeah, and I alluded to that earlier, and certainly we'll have to identify that as I think there's both an opportunity and a risk associated with having another similar size venue in the region. The opportunity being maybe for certain types of events, there's a bit of a circuit there. And then in terms of the risk, maybe competition for some of those, whether it's tenants or types of events. So we'll have to certainly allude to that in the business case.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for bringing that comment forward also, Director Morin. Yeah, seeing no other lights on and being out of time, we'll dispense with receipt. Thank you for joining us today, Steve, and providing the update, and we'll hear from you again soon.
Thank you.
And is there anyone opposed to receipt? Yeah, seeing none, that's carried. And moving on to our last item, an amendment to Recreation Complexes Schedule of Fees and Charges Bylaw number 12, 2008. Moved by Grieve, seconded by Hillian, and I'll pass this to staff.
Thanks, Chair. And I'd like to introduce Kevin Penny as our Manager of Recreation Services. I've suggested to Kevin that I can very quickly introduce this report, but if there are questions, I'll ask Kevin to jump in. So yeah, very quickly, this report is recommending a slight increase to the fees and charges that for the rec complexes that has not happened for several years. There is a much larger body of work being undertaken over the fall to more comprehensively look at the fees and charges for the systems overall. But at this time, we are recommending that this 2.6% per year increase for the period of 2 years begin September 1st, 2025. And that's where the urgency comes in, that we do need to have bylaw readings over the next couple of months to be able to put that in place and inform the public prior to. So if there are any questions, certainly we can field those. But that's a very, very brief update intro.
Thanks for providing that and getting us into our time limits here with a concise update on this report. Director Jolicoeur, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, thanks for the staff report. I did note in the staff report, it speaks to some of the components that will be included in the full comprehensive review. And I'm really happy to hear that we're doing one, because it's indicated that we haven't done one yet. And it does speak very briefly to a benefit analysis. The city of Courtenay has a community benefit continuum for these fees and charges. So in the staff report, it speaks to full cost recovery and a list of other components that will be included in the review. And so I'm just wondering, does staff require direction specifically from the commission for the inclusion of a benefit continuum, such as the one that's been done at the city of Courtenay, or will that be part of the work? Thanks.
Thanks. That'll be part of the work. It is referenced there in the background material, so that's anticipated to be part of the work.
Thanks for that. I see no other lights on, so I assume we're ready to vote on the matter. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Oh, yeah, we're on receipt, aren't we? Okay. Does someone want to move it? Okay, moved by Hillian, seconded by Grieve. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Seconded. I'll assume we're all in favor. Thank you, everyone.